Hello, everybody. This is a well, we hope this will be an episode of the BrainFood show that we're recording live on YouTube. It could also be a test because we tried this before and it absolutely did not work. No one could hear David. David, say something.
Hello.
He also has a terrible cold today, so
Yeah,
this is our first going live. We were deciding whether we're gonna do it or not, and we think you'll get by. If your voice dies halfway through, we'll just
I might die right at the beginning.
it might.
We'll
Well,
see.
there we go.
We'll
Uh,
see how it goes.
what we're going to be talking today about is guilty. I think was the episode title, and it's basically I think it's about the person who gets electrocuted twice, right?
Uh-huh. It
Cool.
is.
I'm just talking right now so we can see if things are actually working. I know there's a little bit of lag on YouTube as this streams out and then
Hmm.
comments come in. Are you seeing anything from the audience yet?
I'm
Do we have an
still
audience?
looking.
Is anyone there? Hello.
Um,
Bring it up on my computer as
yes.
well. Is it
Yes,
working?
we do. It is. Just let me load it.
Oh, it is working. I can't actually believe this is happening. And my lord, that is a lot of comments coming into that box. It's super weird when you sit in the studio all day, you forget there's a lot of people that are watching these videos that we make.
Oh, cool. I can see the comments and everything now.
Me
That's
too.
good.
I think I need to move them to my other monitor because I can see them over here. But I think I need to move them onto the big screen so I can actually see what people are saying. The plan for today will be we'll do an episode of the Brain Food Show live. It'll be messy. You'll have me fluffing up all the quotes. You'll have David getting lost as he goes through the notes because all of this stuff
And
is
my and my audition crashing because that's what audition does.
yeah. Go Adobe. All of this stuff will happen. All of this stuff you never normally see in the Brain Food Show because, well, we edit it out. We're also working out what to do with our camera. So right now I'm kind of awkwardly looking at David, but also awkwardly looking at the camera to address the audience. When we get into the podcast episode, which we'll do in just a moment, I'm just going to look at you. I'm not going to look at the camera because I need to see what you're doing because I'm like having a conversation with you. So that's how we're going to do
Yes.
it. And then is the idea we'll do a bit of Q&A afterwards and just answer people's questions about anything. About YouTube,
Yeah.
about our channels,
Yeah.
about
Anything.
the
Yeah.
episode.
Assuming I can still talk, then I might even answer.
Cool. Oh, I just noticed a problem. For some reason you're very small, like in the live stream. Do you see that? Are you small?
Oh yeah. That's fine.
Hang on. I've made you bigger. You weren't small originally. Should we crack on?
Sure.
Leave us questions. Sure. That's the last time I'll make fun of you because I know it's
No, you can feel
cold.
free because I can't talk at all. We'll see how this works.
Okay, I'm gonna bring up the notes and we can have a go at this. This is the first live stream I've ever done. I don't really know how we're gonna pull questions for this.
People say that you're really quiet and I'm really loud.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I can adjust that right now. Okay. How's that? If I'm sounding more at a normal volume, I know it'll take like a minute to update, but hopefully that'll work. I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Let me see. And I'm gonna try and remember that setting so that we don't have the same problem next time.
Yeah. How's that working, everybody?
God, this is a drain on my computer. My mouse is like dragging slowly across the screen.
Yeah.
I want to hear Simon.
Apparently.
Simon, turn up your volume. Morning from the UK. About time. People are still. Oh, David, volume up. Love this channel. Thanks, guys. I assume at any moment we're going to get a flood of comments saying that I'm definitely loud or something because I did rack it up to like 9.
It seems to be mostly better, I think.
People are saying, yes, better, perfect, awesome, it's good. I like it. Let's make some podcasts.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll try.
Okay. So this is going to be weird because I'm just going to introduce everything again because we need to consider the audience because we'll chop it and... Okay, here we go. This is attempt number 1. Well, attempt number 2 because the last time it completely failed. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Brain Food Show. I'm Simon. Here with me is David. This is actually going out live. We're recording this on YouTube, probably, I guess, about a week before it goes out on the podcast channel. So
yeah, probably.
David's also sick. He's got a bit of a cold.
I can barely talk, so apologies.
You were saying before we started recording that I'm just going to be really non-expressive this podcast so the whole time.
Yeah, every time I try
monotone and dull.
Every time I try to do any range in my voice, it stops working. So I'll just be like this the whole time.
It'll sound like our really early YouTube videos. Yeah. Hi, welcome to the channel.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
Today we're going to start with a quick fact on something on the In the Air Tonight song, and then we're going to talk about a young man who was executed twice and why and what happened there. It was kind of an interesting story.
Are these at all related, or are these just completely random?
Completely random.
It's like, there's something in the air tonight.
Yeah.
I shouldn't sing because we can't edit this stuff out.
No, you got it.
Okay, that's the last time I sing live. Someone comment, it's so weird having the live stuff going on. Someone just comments, oh my God, that's a heavenly voice. It is not. Tell me about Phil Collins. Tell me about In the Air Tonight. Was Phil Collins in Genesis?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was.
Don't judge me. This was before my time. You're like, yes, Simon, he was in Genesis. He was amazing.
I wouldn't say amazing, but
I don't know. I don't think I've ever listened. I've probably heard Love in the Air. Is it Love in the Air Tonight? Or just In the Air Tonight in like movies?
In the Air Tonight.
In the Air Tonight. Well, what about it? Tell me something.
So it's commonly said that that song was written about when one of Colin's friends drowned. And then there was this guy, apparently, that was just standing around and could have jumped in and saved him, but did not. And then so the story kind of goes that Phil Collins then tracked the guy down and then gave him a front row seat to the concert. And then at that point, he sings a song, tells the audience the whole story. And so, like, is any of this actually true? And no, it's not. It's actually mentioned in an Eminem song. Do you know the song Stan?
Yeah, definitely. That's more my generation.
Yeah, so no, none of it's true. It actually, Phil Collins himself says he isn't actually sure what In the Air Tonight is actually about. And so said Collins.
It just came to him in a dream.
Yeah.
Where's that quote? See, this is what happens when we record live, or even when we don't record, just normally the stuff is sliced out. I was just fooling around. I got these chords that I liked, so I turned the mic on and started singing. The lyrics you hear are what I wrote spontaneously. That frightens me a bit, but I'm quite proud of the fact that I sing 99.9% of those lyrics spontaneously. I don't know what this song is about. When I was writing this, I was going through a divorce, and the only thing I can say about it is that it's obviously in anger. It's the angry side, or the bitter side of a separation. So what makes it even more comical is when I hear these stories, which started many years ago, particularly in America, of someone come up to me and say, "Did you really see someone drowning?" I said, "No, wrong." And then every time I go back to America, the story gets Chinese whispers. It gets more and more elaborate. It's so frustrating because this is one song out of all the songs probably that I've ever written that I really don't know what it's about. You know, it's awkward to read quotes like this because it's clearly he's just like, you know, at the end.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound.
Yeah.
Anyway, he sounds like it'd be good on Twitter. Like, people be like, "Hey, was this song about this?" No, wrong. Just that's it. Well, there you go. And
no sponsor today, unfortunately. Although I do see we're getting some people who are donating right here, so that's good.
Oh yeah, wait, I forgot people can donate.
Yeah,
that's nice. There you go. Thanks, guys. That's cool.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Good times. I didn't even know that was a thing. There we go. Well, no sponsor today, so.
All right, pause. Adobe has crashed once again.
Yes. Okay.
I'll go ahead and export it, so we still got it.
Yeah. This is a true behind-the-scenes experience. This happens nearly every episode. I think, was it the last one, which I know you recorded like 2 months ago? It crashed, 3 or 4 times before we got a good one. But at least we have this. And so we make really hard time for our producer on this show, Joel. Poor Joel.
Yeah. Luckily, every time it crashes, I can still usually export it. So that's nice.
Yeah. Adobe. It's we could use Audacity, I suppose. The free thing. Everyone talks about Audacity. But
all right, it's working again
working
for now.
Cool. Should we move into our main topic?
Yes,
Okay,
we will
completely
try.
unrelated to Phil Collins.
Completely unrelated. So, 15-year-old Willie Francis was the youngest of 13 children in a poor black family living in St. Martinville, Louisiana. That at the time only had about 4,000 residents.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're just going to fast forward right to the event here. August 3rd, 1945, he decides to take a little trip to go visit one of his sisters in Port Arthur, Texas, and that's about 150 miles away. And at the time, the police were looking for a drug dealer at the Port Arthur train station, so they were waiting out, and they see Francis walking along, and he's carrying a suitcase. So, young black man in the 1940s in Texas, walking along with a suitcase. Naturally, they decide to arrest him.
He must be the drug dealer.
Yeah. They actually started by running after him, and then he sees these random guys chasing after him, and so he runs off, and then he tries to hide unsuccessfully, and then they bring him in. So they
Seems
interrogate him.
Yeah,
they interrogate him, and pretty quickly they decide that he's not a drug trafficker after all, but he is stuttering a lot during the interrogation, and they think he looks nervous. I mean, as you would be.
Yeah.
And so they decide he must be guilty of something, and so they keep interrogating him. And so it's at this point we should also mention that a little bit before, about a month before, Sheriff Resweber, I think, I don't know, of Martinville, St. Martinville. So he asks the chief of police at Port Arthur to look for anyone from St. Martinville who seems suspicious. And the whole point of this was about 10 months earlier, there was a 53-year-old guy named the owner of the Thomas Drug Store named Andrew Thomas, and he got murdered. And the sheriff in St. Martinville was completely oblivious. No leads. Nobody knew who murdered him, and he's just casting about.
They want him to. They're looking for someone who's nervous about this murder that they committed 10 months ago.
No, just anyone from St. Martinville who seems suspicious, just to see, like maybe they fled town or something after the murder or whatever. Like he's just casting a wide net here because
that's a bit of a long shot.
It turns out the chief of police, Claude Thomas, is Andrew Thomas's brother. And so he was perhaps putting some pressure on to, hey, solve this crime. Yeah. Like, my brother got killed. You got nothing 10 months later. So he's just asking the police around if anyone from St. Martinville seems suspicious, see maybe there's a connection, So they decide during the interrogation to bring this up with Francis. And naturally, after just a few minutes after they bring this up with Francis, he goes ahead and just confesses to murdering Andrew Thomas.
Okay.
As you do.
I'm going to guess the story doesn't end here.
No. And to be clear, this Francis, he did know Thomas, and he actually worked for him for a while. So, I mean, it's a small town, and he worked for him odd jobs occasion at his house and also at his place of business, just doing random stuff, mowing the lawn and, running errands and stuff like that. So he didn't know Thomas. So it wasn't like a completely no connection here. So they do this. So he confesses after literally just a few minutes after they bring up the whole Thomas thing.
It was me.
Yeah, totally. Okay. And obviously back then the interrogations, especially of a young black man at this point in Texas,
not going to be super
brutal.
Going, yeah,
and all that. Not and so. In any event, so literally just a few minutes after he confesses to them, they have him write up an actual written confession, and so it reads.
Just before I read this, I do want to preface this by saying that this is going to be, I'm going to trip on this so many times because it's not exactly brilliantly written. Let me just have a go at it. I, Willie Francis, now 16 years old, I stole the gun from Mr. Aguise.
And that's supposed to be like August, but he spelled it Augise.
Yeah.
Ogise.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, it's going to be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
St. Martinville, LA is Louisiana.
Yeah.
Okay. And kill Andrew Thomas November 9, 1944, or about the time at St. Martinville, Louisiana. I was a secret about me and him. I took a black purse with card in it, $4 in it. I also took a watch on him and sell it in New Iberia, Louisiana. That all I am said, I throw gun away, 38 pistol.
Yeah, and my audition has crashed again.
Oh, God.
I'm going to save it, though.
I'm amazed. Like, we're running the stream from my computer, and it is struggling so hard. Somehow Audition is not crashing, which is, it almost makes me worried that I'm going to listen to this afterwards and the audio is going to be all screwed up. But yeah, the reason we record this in Audition, if people are curious, is because otherwise one of us will sound like, I probably sound quite good because I'm streaming it from my computer. I imagine you sound a little bit worse quality because I'm bringing the audio in through Skype and then streaming.
Are you actually you're recording the audio as well?
My local audio, I am, yeah.
And mine?
That is a good question. I assume YouTube are going to be keeping a record of this live stream.
Well, then that wouldn't be so bad then.
It would be so bad.
Right.
Joel would complain because the audio would be all funky. Are we good?
We're good.
Okay. Carry on. I think I just finished reading the quote.
One person says the audio is out of sync. Is other people experiencing that as well?
I think this could be a common issue I've heard about with streaming. So our video and audio will out of sync somehow. Simon is quiet again? Why am I quiet again? I shouldn't be quiet.
Yeah, apparently I'm still too loud.
Can you just turn your audio down locally?
Yes. How's that now?
I just bumped mine up a little bit as well. Okay. It's all synced up.
All right.
Cool. Simon is out of sync. Oh, this is this is our first one. It is what it is. Let's crack on.
Yeah. So, where were we?
I think I just finished the quote.
All right. So this statement also, I didn't put it here, but also had some typed bits from the police that also asserted that they did not coerce Francis in any way into confessing. So the next day, Francis then writes a second confession, and this time when he's in the custody of the aforementioned Sheriff Resweber of St. Martinville. And so this one did not include any bit about him not being coerced or anything like that, but it also does some key things like actually fix the date of the murder because it wasn't actually on November 9th, and it was actually on November 8th. And they also added concrete details to make it seem like my audition has crashed again.
Okay. Okay. I'm just dying inside.
Yeah. Normally I would just restart my computer.
That would be an issue.
Yeah. Should we do that or no?
Let's keep going and let's just accept that maybe today's audio for the podcast is not going to sound so great.
Yeah.
Okay. Carry on. In that case, I'm going to kill my audition as well, and hopefully that'll sort my video syncing issue because it'll be less demanding on my computer, which I think might be the issue. Yeah, live and you learn. Okay, cool. Crack on then.
All right, so he writes a second confession the next day, this time when he's in the custody of Sheriff Resweber of St. Martinville. Mm-hmm. And this one does not include any bits about not being coerced or anything like that, like the first one, and corrects the date as the 8th instead of the 9th, and adds a bunch of details to actually make it seem like he actually committed the murder and not just like randomly confessing. So details
How is this allowed?
Yeah. So you want to read the second confession?
Yeah, and again, it's going to be difficult. Yes, Willie Francis confessed that he killed Andrew Thomas on November 8th, 1944. I went to his house about 11:30 p.m. I hid back in his garage about half an hour. When he came out of the garage, I shot him 5 times. That all I remember. Sinali Willie Francis.
Yeah.
How is that allowed? Wait, so they take a confession from him the first time. It's not. It doesn't quite fit the events of the crime, like it being on the wrong day. Yeah. And then the police are like, "Oh, can you just fix this to be here?"
Yeah, go ahead. And then add details so it makes you seem like you actually know what you're talking about. So he also, in the beginning, claimed that other people were involved in the murder, but then he retracted this because, it appears to be have been a one-man murder by the evidence of the case. So this brings us to September 13th, 1945. Francis was naturally, given all this evidence, so, non-existent,
Yeah, there's no
convicted of
evidence.
the
There's
murder.
just this clearly coerced confession.
Yeah, no, it gets better. But so he's convicted of the murder, sentenced to death by execution or electrocution. And so on May 3rd, 1946, one Captain F.E. Foster and also a Vincent Benezia, who's actually an inmate there at the prison, but he's also an electrician, so they have him helping out to set up Gruesome Gertie, the electric chair. And it happens to be that at the same time they were both really drunk before the thing, as you do before you execute them.
Extremely drunk.
Yeah, extremely drunk. And so Francis at this point is now 17. And so he goes, this was kind of funny, as he's marching towards the chair. So a deputy tells him,
"Don't worry, Willie. It won't hurt you very much. You won't even feel it." I get the feeling that was a lie.
Yeah, and Francis would then kind of sensibly state of this.
"I wasn't worried at all about whether it would hurt me. I was more worried about the fact that it was going to kill me."
Yeah, and sensibly, but it also turns out they were both wrong. So what happened was when the switch was flipped at 12:08 p.m. that day, Francis, he started jerking around violently in the chair, and so he would go on to describe the experience. And as you might imagine from him being able to describe it later, he lived. So this is what he says.
"I didn't think about my whole life like at the picture show. Just, Willie, you're going out of this world in this bad chair. Sometimes I thought it so loud it hurt my head when they put the black bag over my head. I was all locked up inside the bag with the loud thinking. I wanted to say goodbye." Apparently, Captain Foster had cheerfully said goodbye, Willie, before throwing the switch. So this guy wanted to say goodbye to him too. That's very grim. Okay, moving on. "But I was so scared I couldn't talk. My hands were closed tightly. Then I could almost hear it coming. The best way I can describe it is wham, bzzzt. It felt like 100 and 1,000 needles and pins were pricking in me all over, and my left leg felt like somebody was cutting it with a razor blade. I could feel my arms jumping at my sides, and I guess my whole body must have jumped straight out. I couldn't stop the jumping. If that was tickling, it was sure a funny kind. I thought for a minute I was going to knock the chair over."
In reference to that tickling, right before the execution, when he had been meeting with one Father Hannigan, to like confession and stuff like that, because he was Catholic. So the father told him he should feel lucky that he's being executed because he knows when he's going to die, so he can kind of prepare himself, unlike other people. And then also
look on the bright side.
Yeah, positive Father Hannigan here. Yeah. And he also told him that it would just tickle and then he'd die, so it wouldn't hurt at all. He was
also wrong.
Yeah.
I thought for a minute I was going to knock the chair over. Then I was all right. I thought I was dead. Then they did it again. The same feeling all over. I heard a voice say, "Give me some more juice down there." And in a little while, somebody yelled, "I'm giving you all I got now." I think I must have hollered for them to stop. I said, "Take it off, take it off." I know that was certainly what I wanted them to do. Turn it off.
Yeah,
do you still have electric chair?
I think so. There's actually, I was looking, we were doing that one on Midnight Executions, I think it was. And it turns out there's actually even some states where you can still request a firing squad if you want.
I think I would.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone's done that in a really long time. But it's still an option. Like you can request it as the in certain cases. It wasn't all cases, but there were some cases where the person being executed could pick which one they wanted, like lethal injection or firing squad or.
It seems I read like in the papers every other month about some some lethal injection going funky and some. It all seems very complicated, like unnecessarily complicated.
Well, it has to be because there's so many. Like, it has to be done in a like a humane way, And if it's not, like, there's a lot of legal ramifications to that, and so it has to be like everything has to be very regulated and step by step. And also, as it turns out, they have trouble sometimes getting people who want to do it again. So the people doing it are kind of often doing it for the first time, or like it's not something they do often, so it's easy to botch occasionally.
Oh, so there's no people who are like regular executioners.
I'm sure there are, but it's not like it's not a job people want usually.
No, I'm not surprised. We did a whole video about that. How did you become an executioner in the Middle Ages?
Lots of stuff about
that
was a good one.
That was a good one to today, but
so at a certain point, it became clear that the electric chair wasn't actually going to kill Francis. It was just causing him to jerk around and scream.
Yeah.
And so they decide to actually remove Francis from it. They take him to the coroner. Dr. Young was there on hand. He was supposed to pronounce him dead, but now is just looking him over, see what, how he was. And he was fine, other than, the obvious.
Mhm.
And then they decide at this point they're going to remove him and then just kind of see what went wrong and see what they're supposed to do now. And so as he's leaving, the Captain Foster, the drunk Captain Foster, who flipped the switch, now yells at him,
I missed you this time, but I'll get you next week if I have to use an iron bar.
yeah.
How is this okay?
He's a good guy.
What's going
Captain
on?
Foster. Yeah. So you might think they would just fix the problem with Chair and then just carry out the execution again, as Foster had suggested. That was kind of the plan. But at first, officials, they weren't really sure what to do with him now because the execution didn't go on. So, like, what now? And so they actually, the various officials, they got together with Governor Jimmy Davis and decide what do we do with him. And so it was decided, just execute him next week. About a week later, they would just they would take the chair, have it examined, figure out what went wrong, fix it, and then the next week just execute him again, or try to. Yeah,
I'm gonna guess it had something to do with those drunk guys setting it up. Those extremely drunk guys.
Yeah.
Is there in that executioner video we had that thing about like the death warrant? So you had to have it was only valid for 24 hours or something.
Yeah.
But I guess back in the day they would just say, oh yeah, we can just wait a while. Or do you think they needed to get more paperwork sorted?
I'm not sure at this point. It might have been also that the governor himself might be the one that issues them. I'm actually not sure about that one.
The governor is like the head of the state, right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, correct. And the governor can commute the sentence. They can actually. The governor could have said, if he wanted, he could have just pardoned him and just been like, no, he just went through it. We're not going to make him go through it again. But obviously,
that would have been nice.
Yeah. So Captain Foster.
It seems he's very likely innocent.
Yeah, as will come out shortly. But so Captain Foster, he actually says what went wrong with the chair. He reported in the media that
there was a shortage. A little wire was loose. What a surprise. I wonder who was responsible for that. A little wire was loose and the current went back into the ground instead of going into... That's a word I can't read. Instead of going into the N word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a good guy, that Foster. But in the interim, though, there's this week period, right, where he's just sitting there, and the father of Willie, Francis' father, his name was Frederick Francis. He was quite unhappy with the legal representation, which we'll get into shortly, of his son.
Did he have legal representation?
Yeah, okay. We'll get into that. So he approaches...
This is the worst lawyer.
Yeah, no.
No, they've asked you to amend the confession to get it to the right date. I just do that. That sounds right.
Yeah, no, there was actually two lawyers. He had two lawyers who did nothing. So
the legal team.
So Frederick Francis, he's got no money. He's poor, and so but nevertheless he wants a non-state appointed lawyer, and so he approaches Bertrand de Blanc, and and this Bertrand de Blanc actually was a friend of Andrew Thomas, like a really close friend of the murdered guy.
Was murdered? Okay.
Yeah, and so it was a small town, so they kind of knew each other. But
sure.
So he didn't have any money to pay DeBlanc, but he was like, I will work for you. Like, I'll do whatever you want if you would just take my son's case and try to get this looked over again. And so DeBlanc actually he politely said, no, you don't have to do that. He did eventually get some vegetables apparently from the Frederick Francis's garden, but that was his only payment there. And later he did get some help from lawyers from the NAACP, and also one judge, J. Scully Wright, joined in. Just joined the cause at a certain point. But either way, DeBlanc, while he declined the offer for work, he did decide to take the case, even though he was a friend of Andrew Thomas and all that. And he didn't actually think Willis was innocent. That's not why he took the case. He actually stated,
it's not humane to make a man go to the chair twice. The state fell down on its job. It made Willie suffer the torture of facing death without completing it. Yeah, isn't there something in your constitution about this? I feel like it's one of the ones at the top.
It can potentially be. There's a few legal arguments that can be made on this one, which we'll get into shortly. But DeBlanc actually had quite a bit of backlash for taking the case from local community members who were convinced this kid was guilty of killing this guy who was quite popular around town, and so they wanted to see him die, and they were, why are you defending him? And so he actually, Mr. Blank,
did the local community have some different version of the facts? Because
well, the thing is he was convicted guilty by a jury, and I don't know. He was a black kid who supposedly killed a white guy in a heavily white town, in the 1940s in the South.
I'm glad we live in the future.
Yeah. So there was quite a bit of backlash, but DeBlanc kind of defended himself, noting that all people are entitled to be heard, whether rich or poor, black or white, and that
my critics will soon be dead and buried, but the principles involved in this case of freedom from fear of cruel and unusual punishment and that of due process and double jeopardy will live as long as the American flag waves on this continent.
Yeah, so this DeBlanc actually seems like a good guy.
Seems like a good guy.
Unlike that captain of the police force.
I feel like he's on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah, totally. So
and
he
you
did.
Know what's fun? What I like about this sort of thing is that is the only thing we will ever remember him for.
It's true.
Only thing in history that this man ever is notable for. And it's just us ripping on him in a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And this DeBlanc, while he did go on to have a pretty successful career, and so in like legal circles, maybe people have heard of him. The general public, his like general goodness is all people will know him for.
Yep.
As well. So again,
like
initially DeBlanc thought Francis was guilty, but then he actually started looking into the case, and he switched his mind, changed his mind pretty quickly.
What a surprise!
So the first fact is that this Willie had no legal representation whatsoever during any of the interrogations, and it's also one thing that's a little talked about is when he confessed to the murder of Thomas, he also confessed to robbing this old guy in Port Arthur, assaulting and robbing him, even though he wasn't even in Port Arthur at the time. So that's less talked about. So
for you.
Yeah, he confessed to it, but he couldn't have possibly done it. So either way, obviously they didn't convict him on that one. They went with the murder.
There's so much stuff we're going to look back on. I mean, us looking back on this now and thinking this is ridiculous. This forced confession and all of this stuff. I think the stuff we'll look back on in 50 years of now that we'll be like, that was ridiculous. Like, didn't we? Yeah. Did we just do a video about the... Nope. I was listening to a pod. I get confused because we make so much stuff and I listen to so many podcasts. I was listening to a podcast. It might have been that My Favorite Murderer podcast. And was it that? I can't remember. Anyway, it was about some DNA. And basically there was some... This is useless. I can't remember enough of the story to make it interesting. But it was something about how DNA evidence was so easily confused back in the early days, and it wasn't just this crazy lock-in that CSI teaches us that it is. And then also eyewitness testimony. It seems like that's just mostly like people guessing.
Yeah, totally.
I saw a car accident once. And then I pulled over, and then I got a letter from an insurance company later being like, hey, you witnessed this car accident. Can you tell us about the position of the vehicles? And I was like, yeah, sure, of course I can. And then I got to filling out this document asking all about it. And this was only 6 months before. And I quickly realized, oh, no, I cannot at all. I can't even remember who was there or what type of cars it were or where. No, nothing. It was really bizarre.
And the slightest suggestion will make you remember something completely different as well. So
the insurance company letter was all worded and then the red car crashed heavily.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't really, but they could very easily have influenced me.
Yeah.
If they're just drawn a drawing, this is our interpretation. Do you agree? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. So going back to the case, this was not the only troubling thing DeBlanc found. It gets amazing. So. The gun that Francis supposedly used to murder Thomas happened to belong to the sheriff's deputy. The gun was also lost while it was before the trial, while it was in transit to the FBI crime lab to be analyzed.
Wait, so the sheriff's deputy could have killed this guy?
Oh yeah, it gets worse. So the bullets that were recovered from the body were also lost conveniently, and they actually when they were lost, they hadn't even checked to see if the bullets could have been fired from that gun. Like this, the level of not detail they did in this investigation, which to be fair, was the sheriff's first ever murder investigation, and he botched a lot of things along the way.
Okay.
So that they didn't bother checking the gun when they had it for any fingerprints or anything like that. Um, Also, the deputy would report that his gun was stolen, supposedly 2 months before the murder, but there's no record of him ever actually officially reporting it stolen. And the only person who, besides himself, who states that's true was the district attorney who said he remembered having a conversation with the sheriff deputy about him losing his gun a couple months before.
Hold
And this,
on.
yeah.
The sheriff's deputy, if he did this and then he was like, yeah, no, it was stolen. What sort of sheriff is like, oh, I'm going to go out murdering and uses his own gun? I feel like even with the level of incompetence that's clearly on display here,
He
I
might
feel
have
like
not
that's even
actually
a bit
gone
risky.
there. He might not have actually gone there to murder him, because when Thomas, the coroners actually looked, and the Thomas was actually in a quite a like a tussle or whatever. I can't remember the wording the coroner used, but basically he was in a fight before he got shot. So it may have been that he simply might have gone there, gotten in a fight, not intending to kill him, and then just got really angry and shot him. And so either way, so the gun. I should also point out that the deputy, shortly before Andrew Thomas was killed, threatened publicly to kill Thomas. um, So not only was it his gun, but he also publicly threatened to kill Thomas.
Okay. Also, it doesn't sound like the best idea when you're planning to kill someone.
Yeah, so he thought the reason why he was so angry with Thomas, because he thought Thomas was having an affair with. It's not clear whether it's with his wife or the deputy also had a few mistresses. So it's not really clear which woman he was talking about, but he was basically wanted Thomas to stay away from her, whoever. So it was one. There was a Father Rusev who was the one who reported on this threat to kill. Yeah, and he noted it was definitely a woman, but he wasn't sure which woman the deputy was referring to. Thomas himself, it should be noted here, was rumored to have many affairs with women around town. He was a 53-year-old bachelor, never been married, liked to hang out at women's houses when their husbands weren't around. And so people generally, that was initially after his murder, the populace of the town just kind of assumed one of these husbands probably killed him.
Okay.
And it was just, which one, who knew. But it actually turns out there is a sort of a side story here with two of the women who he used to go visit. One was called named Bay Nasson, and the other was, Henrietta Duplantis. And they actually both independently said that actually Thomas was gay and that he just really enjoyed the company of women, and he liked to bring some of his products, like his makeup and stuff like that, and demonstrate them to them.
Okay.
And so he just they say that is it. But it is also no.
I totally forgot what his job was.
He was a pharmacist, kind of owned a shop that sold stuff like that. Okay. However, these women, both of them, were kind of run through the media, alluding to the fact that they were having affairs and stuff like that. So their reputations were ruined. So it's not, they could have been making that up just to cover for themselves.
I was going to say, it sounds like that.
Yeah.
You're just like, no, we were just hanging out.
Yeah. Yeah. He was totally gay.
He was a bachelor, like 53-year-old bachelor, and this is the 1940s.
Yeah, exactly. So, and this actually brings us, there is a speculative motive for Francis may have actually killed Thomas, and this is completely speculative and tenuous at best. So it turns out, so if you remember that line you read in his first confession, it was a secret between him and I. And so kind of running with the story that maybe he was gay, the Stella Vincent, who was a former employee of Thomas, according to her sister, and this is completely hearsay, so again, this is completely tenuous, who knows, Edith says that Stella told her why, at a certain point she worked for Thomas, and then she just abruptly one day she just quit. She just left, just left the office. I'm not going, and then she moved to a different town, and it was why? And so Edith claims that Stella told her that the reason was because she witnessed an incident in one of the back rooms between Thomas and Francis that was sexual in nature. And that she couldn't work for him anymore after that. And so this has kind of been speculated. Maybe that was it was a secret between him and I, and why perhaps Francis wanted to kill Thomas. Maybe, but this is completely. It's a thing people say.
So
I thought I'd bring it up. But
it's the sister of the woman who witnessed this thing.
Yeah. And like years later, she brings this up. Yeah,
Yeah, listen, I'm no
exactly.
lawyer, but
Yeah, and important here is that Francis himself would describe Thomas in glowing terms, and like after he was arrested and everything, he would talk about him like he was an awesome guy, and like literally said he's a swell guy, a very fine fellow. I didn't have a grudge against him. Um, and so this seems a stretch, but it's something that people often suggest as a potential motive. And this is the best motive that anyone can come up with as to why he might want to have killed him. So, anyways, going back to the
yeah,
evidence.
wait. In that whole
Yeah.
initial confession thing,
Yeah.
what was the alleged motive? That he wanted to rob his wallet?
Yeah, this is what the prosecutors went with, that he wanted to rob him, but that also didn't make sense
Shot
because
him
he worked.
5 times.
Yeah, he worked for Thomas. He could have robbed him many other times without Thomas even knowing. Why would he go to Thomas's house that night and rob him? For what reason? And the thing he was supposedly robbed him, all he supposedly took was a pocket watch. Speaking of that pocket watch, so Francis supposedly stole that from him and then sold it at a jeweler's. And so this could be good evidence, like if the jeweler had this pocket watch, right?
Yeah.
So the police go to that Rivera's jewelry store, and they asked him, did he sell you a pocket watch? And the jeweler said, no, I've never seen Francis before in my life. He did show that around the time of the murder, shortly after, someone did sell him a pocket watch for $5, according to his records. But again, he said he'd never seen Francis before. He didn't know anything about that. So this could have been potential evidence, but it ended up not being because they didn't have the watch and they didn't have any, the jeweler didn't say it was Francis.
It just gets more insane.
Yeah, and so obviously this doesn't get brought up in the trial either.
Why would it?
The gun didn't get brought up in the trial either because they didn't have it. So literally they're going
nothing.
with
they have that. They have the confession.
They had absolutely nothing. Yeah, and so then this is even more sort of damning is Thomas's neighbors, Alvin and Ida Van Brocklin. They hear gunshots right on the night of the murder. So Ida looks out the window and she sees a car in the driveway and the lights are on and it's running. And after the gunshots, she's scared, so she just closes the door or whatever, closes the window, and they just go back to bed. And the next morning, the car is gone before the body was found. So there was a car there. Now there's no car there when the body's found in the front yard. And yet Francis, he never learned to drive a car, and he didn't have access to one.
He was like 15 or something, or 16.
Yeah, and poor. And so, he had. So, and again, the coroner reported there was some sort of fight, and then five shots. And this is also significant. It's 5 shots from a 6-shooter. All 5 shots hit him. And two in the side, 2 in the back, 1 in the head. Francis has never fired a gun, as far as anyone was aware before this incident. And somehow he managed, is with this 38 caliber gun, to hit connect with all 5 shots quite accurately. And so it would seem that the person who shot the thing probably actually, was familiar with the gun and good at firing it, like a deputy would be.
Yeah.
So again, this seems like a little bit of a stretch. How did Francis hit him with all 5 shots when he supposedly never fired a gun before in his life? So this is all they got. They have the confession. That's it. They really have no other evidence against him. So even like a slightly competent lawyer should have been able to create enough reasonable doubt for the jury to be just like, no, he didn't do it.
I feel like a slightly competent child would have been able
to. Or like a judge who's just reasonable might be like, all right, guys, let's do a little talk at the bench here, people. He's, either way. So the 2 public defenders who were assigned to him were James Randall Parkinson and Otto J. Maystayer. And you know what? Their first act as his lawyer is to try to get him, literally, they appeal to the judge to get Francis to change his plea of not guilty to guilty. Is as their first act.
Wait, the guy's on his side?
Yeah, and under Louisiana state law at the time, anyone who pled guilty for murder was automatically get the death penalty. So by doing this, he would get the death penalty.
Guilty to murder.
There's no appeal here process going. And so that's their first act to defend him, is to try to get the judge to just change the plea, even though Francis says not guilty.
And then he would be automatically executed.
Yes. So then following this up, when the judge did not, so then they actually have to defend him. They did not bother to try to get a change in venue, even though obviously this was a small town. Yeah. Everyone knew about the murder. Everyone knew about Francis. A lot of them knew both the people. Everyone had formed their opinion, of course, leading up to the trial beforehand. So everyone in the jury would, before the trial even started, would already have an opinion on whether he was guilty or not and all that. So they didn't seek a change in venue, even though they probably could have got one. And oh, it should also be noted, like Francis was well liked around town, and he had worked for a lot of people around town. And
Apparently not by those 12 jurors.
yeah, the people is generally described as like a very kind and gentle disposition, not violent at all. Francis himself claimed,
My friends used to tell me I could make almost anyone laugh when I said or did something.
yeah, apparently he was also quite a jokester and a prankster. And his mother would describe, her name was Louise, and she would describe her son.
He didn't like no baseball or football, didn't even shoot marbles. Most times he was around the house when he wasn't in school, and he was in the Lord's own blessing when it came to helping his mama. That child could cook and make a bed as good as women folks. My Willie was always kind. He used to play with little children. Even when he was a big boy, he used to play with them. There wasn't no bad in him. I just don't understand.
Yeah, and a lot of the people around town actually didn't understand either. Like, really, that guy? That's who you think? And so it was quite a mixed opinion among the town folk as to whether he was guilty before the trial. But the point was there that everyone kind of did already have an opinion, which definitely, the lawyers probably could have got a change of venue to some sort of a more neutral territory. They also, when the trial actually started, they waived their right to an opening statement. They did not raise a single objection during the brief trial.
Oh, yeah, they'd already asked him to plead guilty, which was a mandatory death penalty. Like, these guys are not super motivated.
Yeah, so the prosecutors argued that it was, as mentioned, it was a robbery gone wrong, which didn't make any sense, and they did not object.
Why didn't he change his lawyer? Or is that he had?
Well, these are public. He had no money, and these are public defenders.
Surely at that point he'd be like, they asked me to plead guilty where I'd mandatorily get the death penalty, Judge. I'd request a different public defender.
I wonder if you can. I don't know if you can request a different one once it's assigned, or if you have to hire if you want to do that. I don't know.
Messed up.
Were you like a law student?
Yeah, I was, but not of like criminal law, and not of American criminal law, and not of American criminal law in the 1940s. It's quite a big field.
Fair enough. So then when the prosecutors rest, they rest the case. Francis' lawyers stand up and they say they have no evidence to offer on behalf of the accused and rested their case immediately. They didn't even attempt to defend anything at all. So again, even a halfway competent attorney could have easily probably got Francis off.
Like I said, halfway competent child. I'd rather have an 8-year-old defending me.
Yeah. They did actually make some closing remarks, but unfortunately these remarks were not recorded, so we don't know what those were. But they were probably
fry him, hang him, take him outside and shoot him, maybe?
Yeah, he's totally guilty. You should just convict him, probably. But either way, they also, after the fact, they didn't bother filing any appeals, which for any execution, like if your guy is sentenced to death,
well, yeah, it takes like 20 years to kill someone, I feel.
Yeah, and they're always going to file appeals, even if they're not real likely. They're going to go through their motions, just try every avenue to get the person off. But they didn't bother any of this. So
why would they?
We should actually bring. There is the actual supposed evidence against him, and why the original police say they brought up the Thomas thing was they claimed that Francis actually had Thomas's wallet in his pocket for some reason 10 months later, that had Thomas's ID in it, again 10 months later. Why? They claim that was there, but they lost it, and so it was not brought up at the trial either. So it was really just their word that had actually happened. So yeah. Oh yeah. Also, I should mention that Francis supposedly led the police to where he supposedly threw the gun away, and the gun wasn't there, of course, at the time. Again, the police were the only witnesses to this anyway. But apparently, a couple months before this, a gun had been found there. They claim by an unknown citizen, unnamed. Yeah, and it was in the exact spot that he said.
Wait, so he led them there, and then later on they were like, "Yeah, we definitely found something there before." Right, guys?
Yeah, and
right, guys?
Of course, this again is the gun that was lost. And these citizens that supposedly did all this were never named at all. And there was no witnesses. Like, he still didn't have a lawyer at this point when all this was going on. In fact, I think it was a week before the actual murder trial when they assigned the lawyers to him. And he had been in jail for quite some time at that point without ever having a lawyer to speak to. So naturally, at this point, DeBlanc is like, yeah, I don't think this guy is guilty anymore. And so the one weird thing about this, though, and the thing people bring up is that DeBlanc and then eventually the NAACP lawyers are fighting for Francis's life. But at no point did Francis ever say he didn't kill him. Like he seemed to maintain that he did kill Thomas.
Why?
And he had many correspondence and stuff. And that's the thing, is like, why? And he told one reporter, I wasn't after money. So implying that he did attack Thomas, but denying that the prosecutors were right, that he was actually robbing him. But he didn't say, he would always refuse to say why he killed him then. So it was just sort of kind of weird. And so the general thought is that perhaps he was being pressured, like maybe his family was being threatened, like maybe the police told him, hey, if you say you didn't do it, maybe we'll do something to your family or something.
I wonder why he didn't plead guilty then.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe that was just too much or something.
Yeah, this is sort of the mystery of it. Why did he never recant? The only time he ever seems to have done that is on his cell wall right before his execution. He did write, "Of course, I'm not a killer," on the wall, and that's the only time. And so the general thought is maybe he was being threatened, or his family was being threatened, or something like that. So he was just keeping his mouth shut. Either way, DeBlanc and his new lawyers, didn't think for a second he was actually guilty. But nevertheless, going back to it was a 2-day trial. The 12 white jurors, they convict him, sentence him to death, all that. So now we're going on to DeBlanc's defense. So
yeah,
after the failed execution, DeBlanc is looking at his options, and looking at the evidence, he can potentially go, hey, there's all this evidence that wasn't brought up that seems to show he's innocent, so we should get a new trial based on this new evidence.
Sounds like a pretty good idea.
His problem was that he only had a week to work with, and going that route he thought was going to take too long, and so he'd just get executed in the interim while the paperwork was kind of going through and trying to make his arguments.
Mm-hmm.
So he decided to do a different tack. He decided instead. Lost my place.
We've done very well so far.
So far, yeah. This is usually I lose my place a lot more than this.
Yeah. It's good, and your voice is holding up.
It's so far. Where was I?
You were talking about the lawyer and his defense and choosing something else.
Oh, yes. So instead, he goes with the argument that the sentence had already been carried out. He was scheduled to sit in that chair and have it switched on, and be
scheduled to be killed.
He was, but this is still an argument because the sentence was carried out. So there was a legal argument to be had. And the other thing,
like I'd have just gone with any one of the huge multitude
of
things that would have got him off.
He had more. His second thing was that punishing him again would constitute cruel and unusual punishment, which would actually, doing it a second time, and that would not, that definitely, if the Supreme Court would side with him on that, and so this was deemed good enough argument. So he did get a stay of execution that lasted almost a year, over which he got to appeal all the way to the Supreme Court. And it became, as you might imagine, this story of this kid who this young man, he was 15 when he supposedly did this murder, and then so young when he was getting executed. The electric chair doesn't work, so then there's quite a few, actually, a lot of the church groups, churches around the country, a lot of religious people were like, this is a miracle. It was obviously like the hand of God saving him. He must have been innocent, or at least should be let off
before.
Yeah, and so this is kind of so it became a national sort of story, and that people were following it, and so a lot of people felt he was innocent. Some not so much, but either way, DeBlanc, he takes his argument to the Supreme Court, and initially it was a 7-2 against, and so it seems like this thing's going to work at all. But one of the justices, Justice Harold Burton, was quite adamant. Like he definitely wanted Francis to get off here, and so he convinced Justice Frank Murphy and Justice William O. Douglas to change their vote. And his general argument was stated as.
How many deliberate and intentional reapplications of electric current does it take to produce cruel, unusual, and unconstitutional punishment? While 5 applications would be more cruel and unusual than 1, the uniqueness of the present case demonstrates that today 2 separate applications are sufficiently cruel and unusual to be prohibited. If 5 attempts would be cruel and unusual, it would be difficult to draw the line between 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's a pretty solid argument.
Yeah, and this was kind of DeBlanc was really pushing for, because he was noting, like, well, what happens if the second execution
Right.
goes wrong too? So now you've just done it twice.
What happens if they keep going wrong and it's like 20?
Yeah,
Where
and
do you draw the line?
you can't guarantee the second one's going to be successful. And even if, and again, even if it was, he's doing it the second time, cruel and unusual. And then, of course,
when did this become a better idea than the firing squad? Or like the
Yeah.
gas chamber?
This was Thomas Edison really pushed for this in some ways, while it looks more brutal, once it's switched on, if it actually works, the person's going to be instantly unconscious. They're not going to, and that's the general idea. There's no supposed pain normally. Like you just, switch is flipped, and then a split second later, you don't feel anything, even though you're like jerking around and doing all that. They're leaving it on,
but you're
and
unconscious.
it's kind of, you're unconscious.
Okay.
It's kind of the argument there. So now with this Justice Harold Burton's convincing these other two justices to switch sides, the vote is now 5-4. But there's one, Justice Felix Frankfurter. He actually agrees from the moral standpoint that Francis should be left off. But from a legal perspective, he can't side with him. He just doesn't agree with the legal argument there. But from morally, he was quite distraught over this because he wanted to side with him, but he just didn't feel he could. So ultimately, the vote went against him 5-4. And it was actually the day after his 18th birthday, Francis's 18th birthday, that this happened. So, but this wasn't the end, because Justice Frankfurter, he was quite upset about this thing. He didn't, he wanted this kid to get off, or at least, not have to be executed again. So he actually reached out to a friend of his, who was an attorney in Louisiana, who also happened to be really good friends with the Louisiana governor, Jimmy Davis. And so he, implored his friend, would you talk to Davis and see if he would just, make it a life sentence instead of executed, and just give him a life sentence in prison. So that way, Davis, maybe all the people who thinks he's guilty are still happy, but now all the people who want to see him not executed again are going to be happy. So it's like a good middle ground. But unfortunately, Davis did not agree, and he did not do this. So the attempt there failed. And so while you might think a lawyer who's not really getting paid would give up at this point, DeBlanc was not giving up at all. Yeah, he wasn't giving up at all. So he decided then to go back to the beginning and to actually do, now that he had some time to work with, to actually go with the different argument that the trial had been a sham. There's new evidence that we found unearthed that actually should give a second trial.
New evidence unearthed. There was no evidence to begin with.
Yeah. And one of the new evidence, this was actually known at the time, but it wasn't brought up anywhere at the trial, was the eyewitness. Again, it wasn't brought up at the trial because he had no defense, but it was known that the eyewitnesses had seen a car, and then there was no car later. Like at the time of the gunshots, there was a car, no car in the morning. Francis can't drive. So clearly there's something going on there. And so he hoped to get a new trial based on this.
With all of the other stuff.
Yeah.
All of the other stuff.
But unfortunately, time ran out. And coming up to the date of the execution, he still hadn't got a stay of execution to then pursue this new angle. And so, in the end, it was a couple hours before the execution was to take place. And Francis himself tells DeBlanc, "No, just give it up. Stop." He particularly was noting that the year-long battle had really taken a toll on his mother. She had been stressed the whole time, and at that point, she was quite ill, and she had been getting worse. And she was just completely stressed out, of course, by the trial and her son going to be executed. And so he just said, "No, give it up. I'll just be executed. It's fine." So DeBlanc went ahead a couple hours before and just stopped his appeal process. And so on May 9th, 1947, Francis was again strapped to gruesome Gertie. This time they brought in an actual competent person who was not drunk and who had been operating electric chairs for 6 years. The guy's name was Grady Jarrett, and he was quite professional and well liked. He did a good job, so he did it properly. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the executioner we were talking about, who everyone liked him because he did his job professionally. Yeah. So this guy was like that. So Francis, they asked him if he had any last words. He just said nothing at all. They flipped the switch, and then he was the 24th person to die in that chair. So
this is not the ending I was hoping for, I have to say.
No, he did send a letter to the Shreveport Sun, kind of giving his goodbyes to everyone, because people had been writing him letters and stuff, and he'd been writing back. That's kind of what he'd been doing in prison. Just kind of reading and writing letters, and a lot of people have been supporting him. So he did write, and then he finished it off with,
"To everyone, my best farewell wishes I send, and may none reach my dreadful end."
And what's something else that just should be brought up before we finish this section is that, so 3 years after Francis is executed in gruesome Gertie, the Supreme Court actually did reverse a murder conviction where the only evidence against this case, again, a 15-year-old who confessed to murder, after a 5-hour interrogation in this case, they went ahead and reversed it because, as the Supreme Court would rule in the case.
We cannot believe that a lad of tender years is a match for the police in such a contest. He needs counsel and support if he is not to become the victim first of fear, then of panic. He needs someone on whom to lean lest the overpowering presence of the law, as he knows it, crush him.
Yeah, so it does appear that this was just 3 years later, so had DeBlanc got to make his argument, it does appear that he would have won on these grounds and probably gotten Francis off. So, yeah.
This,
right?
Yeah, right? What?
Yeah, so moving on. Let's do a bonus fact. Okay. So, well, Willie Francis, yeah.
Just before we get into the bonus facts.
Yeah.
Wow, that's just like in a video. This is brought to you by Skillshare. It's not. I want to say how we, because I know we're going to do a Q&A after this and people have been watching for a while. We'll edit this out of the actual podcast version. How do you want to handle, because there's a lot of questions coming or there's a lot of comments. How do you want to do Q&A? Do you have any ideas? I mean, I could ask people to put it on my Twitter, which will be a little less crowded, and I can get it on my phone. Or
I think we'll try it here because they seem to not be scrolling too fast, so I think this is fine.
Okay,
right here on the chat.
Okay, cool. And we'll just pick them at random. So if you
maybe when we do it the time when anyone's actually awake, then we might have to switch. But
hey, man, people are awake in Europe. I'm awake.
So, Australia, this one's for you.
Hey, it's 10:23 on a Tuesday morning.
Yeah,
I guess people might be at work.
Yeah. So bonus facts. Facts. So Willie Francis was the first living person, I should say, to be executed by the state twice via electrocution or sent to the chair twice. Mm-hmm. But it turns out before this, there was one instance of a guy who was put in the chair twice in completely separate instances. But one of the times he was dead.
I really feel like for the bonus facts, we could have, gone for some nice more Genesis facts or something about Phil Collins or, something less to do with execution.
I just thought this one was funny because he was put in the chair a second time while he was dead. So the guy's name is Fred Van Wormer. Mm-hmm. Wormer. And so he was executed in 1903. They pronounce him dead, take him off to the morgue. But when they get there, turns out he's still alive. He's still breathing. His heart's still going. Mm-hmm. So they return him to the electric chair. But in the interim, the transport from the morgue to the electric chair, he died. But they decided to go ahead and strap him into the chair anyway and fry him again, just in case.
Oh, okay.
I'll just skip the next one.
It's okay. I don't know what to say to that. Like, they take his dying body, and yeah, this was grim.
I'll skip the next bonus fact because it's grim too. We'll just go right to the Q&A.
We could. Okay. Okay. Well, if you put effort into finding this bonus fact, I don't want to deprive you of telling me.
Willie Bowley, who's in Washington and can't sleep. I am also in Washington, Bellingham.
Okay. Shall we? So Q&A. No more bonus fact. That's done.
Yeah, the next one was depressing anyway. So
let me wrap this up for the podcast, so Joel has something to work with, and then we'll just dive into Q&A.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was enormously. It was bad, and then you think, oh yeah, this is going to end. It's like he's going up to the Supreme Court. He's going to be twisted round, and then you realize, oh no, this is real life. DeBlanc after his career, like in his retirement, he was actually interviewed about this case too. And even I remember it was like 4 decades later or something like that. He actually broke down and was like weeping in front of the reporter over this case, even like 4 decades later, that he hadn't managed to win the case. So he was still quite broken up for pretty much his whole life about the thing. Hero.
Yeah.
And you know who wasn't a hero?
Yeah, his 2 original attorneys.
Yes, and the police, and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. As always, I say we'll be back, but I think it was 2 months since the last episode. But
yeah,
we're back on a more regular schedule now, I should think, right?
It'll be a little more regular, yeah.
Nice. Leave us a review on... Did you know they renamed iTunes to Apple Podcasts?
I did not know that.
Someone emailed me about this saying you always call it iTunes, but I'll have you know it's now called Apple Podcasts. So leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, Stitcher.
Oh, we
other
totally
places.
forgot. We're supposed to announce a winner today.
Do you have that winner?
No, because it was like 2 months ago and I totally
Okay.
forgot about it.
Wait, we have another winner already?
Yeah,
We-
well, because
we-
we never announced from the last one.
We give away Amazon gift cards whenever we cross like a review
Yeah,
threshold.
was
on
this one
iTunes.
$300 or something like that?
Good Lord, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Next time we'll announce the winner because, wow, it's been 2 months. We're really sorry.
Yeah,
I
so
haven't
go
checked
leave
the
a review.
podcast email in a long time.
Go leave a review, and then you'll be you'll sneak in under the wire.
There you go. Yeah, leave us a review, all of that good stuff, and we will be back hopefully soon. Thanks for listening. Q&A. That's the end of the recorded portion of today's episode.
All right, I
Okay,
shall stop and export then before it crashes.
Wait, you were recording this?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I stopped recording it because I thought we decided we were just going to pull it from YouTube.
Oh, well, I'll have my really cracky voice audio to be nice.
You could listen to it when you're healthy and think about the bad times.
Yeah.
I need to move closer to my screen, so I maybe I can bring them up on my iPad here. Give me a second. How did you like the live stream, everybody? Let us know. This was our first one.
And I apologize that I can't talk. Yeah.
How would I bring this up? I'd need to be in the YouTube app, right? And then if I open up our channel.
Yeah, I'm watching it as well. So
I just discovered apparently I'm not subscribed to Today I Found Out. Okay, now let's see if I can bring that up. Okay, hey, here we go. And I can see these. I'm just going to look for question marks. Simon, where are you from? Well, I'm from England. Oh, this is going really fast. Oh, my.
Yeah, it's starting to speed up.
Yeah. Hey, pick something out if you see something you like.
Yeah.
Or wait, do people give money to us on this? Maybe we should probably go through those first. That might be respectful.
Yeah.
I need to work out how to find those. Okay, they're on the left here. Sorry, must respond. Please. Maybe there's no question.
All right. So Dr. What says, how did you guys meet?
I think I emailed you, right? I
You
just sent you
emailed
a
me.
random email saying, do you want to make some
Audiobook.
an audiobook?
The Wise Book of Wise, which is available for sale on Audible or Amazon.
So that was how we first met. And then I think that you've become very small again. And I don't know why. I can just adjust that.
It's fine.
It's weird. There we go.
Yeah, so you emailed me and then you wanted to make the audiobook. And then we went ahead and did that like a couple months later. And then we did the podcast version. And then that was doing really well, but we couldn't make money off it because it was too short. It was like 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Do you remember those hosting bills from back in
and
the
the
day?
hosting was insanely expensive because it was actually doing really well. And I don't know, at our peak, we were, like 1 million downloads a month, I think, there for a little bit. And then, so then we decided to switch over to YouTube. And that's, if you go back to the original videos, a lot of them are just sort of like pictures, like a slideshow. And that is the audio from that podcast initially. And then we moved into more presenter style.
Yeah. So that's how it happens.
Yeah.
How do you collaborate across the ocean or coordinate across the ocean? Thank you, El Spyro. Lots of emails. I think, we didn't talk on the phone for the longest time. We just sent lots of emails to each other, like really, really long emails.
Honestly, I think we met in person before we ever talked on the phone. When we went to that thing in Wisconsin, what was that? Rayton Solar.
Yeah, we made that video.
The particle accelerator thing.
That's so crazy. Super long emails, big spreadsheets listing what videos are coming up, and then Trello, like a project management tool.
And then you're in 8er says, will Carl Smallwood ever come on Today I Found Out podcast? And he did already one time. What episode is that?
It's one of the early episodes because at the beginning of this podcast, we thought it would be a good idea to interview people. I like doing that interview, but...
Yeah, Carl's great. He will be on the Today I Found Out channel for one video coming up pretty soon. You'll see him.
Is that the video? Remind me what one that's about? Do you remember the name?
The soap. The guy who buys all the soap in America Carl picked that one. He said it's hilarious. I haven't looked at it yet.
Okay, me neither. Cool. Who invented the paperclip? That's something that will require research. Can't answer that on the fly. Wait, do you know?
Yeah.
You got to go on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, man. Really.
I can't remember his exact name. 1 second.
You can't use Google. That's cheating.
No, I'm using my own work. How about that?
Okay.
Okay, it was not invented by Johann Baller, as is commonly stated. And this is long. I'm not going to answer it here. Google it; it'll come up.
Okay. Yeah.
On our website today, I found out.
Someone asked, what podcasts do you find yourself listening to most often? Do you listen to podcasts? A lot of podcasts?
I used to listen a lot to Fangraphs when Carson Stewley was hosting. Now, not so much. Carson Stewley was amazing before he got picked up by the Toronto Blue Jays to do some work there. He's hilarious. And then also the Mike Matthews Muscle for Life podcast. It's a really good fitness podcast. Quite thorough and really actually kind of cuts through a lot of the myths and stuff about nutrition and working out. That's what he's kind of good at and known for. Good podcast.
Like that stuff.
What about you?
Dude, have you ever listened to Planet Money? I love Planet Money.
No, I have not.
It's from NPR. It's really good. It's quite short. I haven't listened to it in too long, but I really got into audiobooks. Do you remember we had a sponsor called Scribd?
Yes, I do.
Like, you've gone small again. Why are you so small? And this app is legit amazing. They just have like an unlimited number of audiobooks. I feel like this is a sponsor spot, but it's not. It's just so legitimately good. I've listened to like 20 books from them this year.
Is it free?
No, it's like $8 a month, but you get unlimited books. And so it's pretty.
Oh, that is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do the Audible, but like the credit system. So
yeah, but then it's like Audible's great. It's a bit expensive, like because and you get like one a month unless you pay more. Whereas this, it's like there's a lot of stuff out there. I like it, and
right,
it's kind of
here's your chance to plug plug yourself. El Spiro asks, how many shows are you doing now, Simon?
This show, BrainFood show, podcasts. Today I found out, not podcasts, YouTube channels. Today I found out top 10s, biographics, and visual politic, and highlight history, which I keep calling Today in History because that was our kind of working title, and I need to stop doing
history is way better.
It's very confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think we should have more episodes coming for that soon, right? Because it's kind of in its early stages.
So Matthew Hammond on when did public executions go out of vogue? Go look at our video on executions. There was actually a specific one on this. Funny enough, what we were talking about today, a young black man who was executed via public hanging. It's kind of botched a little bit. And it was the last one, and it was just kind of obviously they wanted to get rid of sort of the public spectacle of it because it kind of seemed a little macabre and whatnot. And they didn't. You have this like crowd of people watching these people get executed. It didn't seem very civilized, so they naturally wanted to bring it into a private setting. Also, potentially for when they are botched, it's not a good thing to see publicly. And it's sort of the main point was to get rid of a lot of the news media, the public spectacle of it, which the news media were picking up. It doesn't look really good in the papers, to have this nation of supposedly civilized executing people publicly. So that was kind of a lot of the impetus for the change from public executions and public hangings to the other.
There you go. I'm gonna have to work out why you keep changing size in future episodes. People were like, "You got huge," and then I realized you were huge. So it says he got so big. I don't know what a fandom is. Are you in either of? Are you in any fandoms? What's a fandom?
I don't know what that is.
Like a fan of something?
It's Phoenix Dylan Crooks. What is a fandom?
Yeah. Simon controlling the window sizes. Absolutely. What is the name of your cat? Yeah, I saw your cat rolling around in there today.
That one is named Waffles. The other one name is Syrup. And I used to have a dog named Maple.
Do you like my shirt?
These cats.
David, do you like Simon's shirt?
It's nice. Your shirts are always nice. You never just wear like a t-shirt.
No, I never wear t-shirts. And if I do, it's that. Do you don't really use Twitter much? You know that Mac Weldon sponsor? They sent me a shirt which they said would not get
Oh
smelly
yeah, I
if I
saw
wore
that.
it for like a
So
week. I wore it for like 8 days. It didn't get smelly, and I flew
serious.
places.
We should get them to sponsor a follow-up. Definitely.
How much
those
work
cats,
goes
those
in?
cats are actually like 16 years old too. They're still going strong. I don't know what the deal with that is.
My aunt had a cat which lived forever, and in the end,
Yeah.
I think they were doing like transfusions on it. Like they had these
No,
bags of something that would do the work of its kidneys or some stuff like that. That she had to like hang
oh,
it
yeah.
up to an IV every day. It was
That's like a
weird.
total one of the biggest causes of death of house cats is dehydration and so kidney failure because most of their life they're desert animals so they don't have a strong thirst sense. So most of their life they spend kind of in a mild dehydrated state when they're house cats eating dry food instead of like meat which is like 80-90% water. So they can get most of their water that way, but when they're eating dry food they don't get that, so they have to drink, but they don't have a strong thirst sense, so they don't drink a lot. And so a lot of cats will die of kidney failure or sometimes diabetes related to that. And so one of the things you can do when cats get older, if they start showing signs of this sort of thing, or like dry mouth and sores on their mouth, things like that, you can switch them to like a high quality wet cat food, which is more like the water content is more similar to what they eat naturally, like if they were to eat an animal. And this will clear up the problem in some cases.
I had a cat as a kid. It always got wet food. It smells terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whoever
It
knows
does.
that this is a Charles DeWitt shirt, that's amazing. It is. I don't know how you could know that. There's no branding on it or anything. It's just a regular shirt, but it is.
Okay.
You're actually a clothing wizard, Zrecht.
In Kalika says a fandom is an extreme group of fans of a music group, television, or something like that. Makes sense.
I think we're both Trekkies, right? Quite
Yeah.
into the old Star Trek.
Next generation primarily for me,
Of course.
but the others are good except for the original. I never cared for the original.
Never saw it.
And
Deep
and
Space
the newest
Nine
movies.
also I didn't get into.
Deep Space Nine is okay. It gets better. The first two seasons are crap, but like the first two seasons of Next Generation are crap too. So,
Yeah. I felt. I think I got into Next Generation because I didn't watch it sequentially because it was the 90s and you just watch whatever's on TV. And then Deep Space Nine, I just never watched back in the day, and then I tried to get into.
Yeah.
And if something's going to take 2 seasons for me to get into, I'm just not. I'm not in. I'm out.
Yeah.
What am I looking at?
Someone I can't remember. Was it Phoenix? Dylan Crooks again is wondering if we'll ever do a live meetup in the U.S. or a meetup in the U.S.
We probably should. That'd be fun.
So when we do a trip where we fly around, when we fly around the country, that could be fun.
Yeah, we should definitely do that.
We should rent a plane and then go.
Okay,
I'll try not. I swear I won't crash.
Okay, good. Yeah, you got your pilot's license. What, last month?
Yes.
Have I spoken to you since then? Congratulations if I haven't.
No, actually, I don't think we have. No, it went well. It was good. Fast, 40.2 hours, the minimum, which is good. It was cheaper that way because it's super expensive otherwise.
Okay. Oh, someone comments about Stargate. Sorry, have you seen Stargate? Stargate is legit amazing. And
No,
even people didn't like the Universe one. I like Stargate so much that I liked Universe. No, not for you. Okay.
I haven't seen it, so yeah.
It's good. I haven't watched Princess Bride yet, Andrew Kennedy.
Yeah.
And I've gone on enough trips and been on enough planes to probably should have watched it by now, but I haven't. I should.
Yeah.
I think it's a trope. I can't watch it.
Well, we have to at some point, because it's good. You're missing out.
Yeah, I should. It's gonna disappoint me now. Stargate Universe was trying too hard to be Battlestar Galactica. Yeah, you're not wrong. But it was good still. Or I liked it. I don't think it's objectively good, but I liked it.
We should do a UK. Someone asked if we should do a UK meetup, and actually, Carl Smallwood has invited us to come meet up with him sometime, and that could be a fun collaboration between the two channels.
It's also much more convenient for me.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know. I want to see the Orville. Did you know? So Anorak Trend asked Orville is the Star Trek modern, and they actually asked us when they first came out to go there and to the initial screening of the Orville, but I can't remember. There was like a visa issue or something at the time.
Because it was God, I don't remember the exact issue, but it was like one of those things that you can't do if you're not a US, if you're not like, because I don't have a, I'm not American. I can't just go work in America. And this is
it
one
would
of
have been
those
worse.
things that is actually not allowed because it's like journalism or some weird thing like that.
Yeah, but then like it turns out that most YouTubers just kind of do it anyway.
Yes.
And just yeah. So El Spyro asks, what kind of microphones are those in there? SM7B. I don't remember.
Sure, SM7Bs.
Yeah, sure, SM7B.
Should we wrap it up there? Were there any paid question people who commented with
I don't
money
know.
that we
How
should
do
have
you?
answered?
Yeah.
I can see that. I can't see them on my iPad, so I'm just going to go close up to the screen, just because that seems polite. And thank you everybody who left us some dollars. It's very kind of you. I didn't. I think I knew this was a thing, but I totally forgot about it. So that was a nice surprise.
Is Cassie Bug asks, who's your favorite captain? And I mean, everyone has to be Jean-Luc Picard, right? Like, that's a no-brainer.
As if that's a serious question. I saw a video, like, I get a lot of Star Trek on my, like, clips and stuff on my YouTube homepage, and someone was talking about, like, how Cisco's better than Picard. And I was like, please.
Yeah, no, not even,
I've seen like half a season of DS9, and there's no better captain than Picard.
No, he is, and that new show is going to be amazing, probably just because he's on it.
Yeah, looking forward.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up. Thank you everybody for joining us in the live stream. I guess this is probably how we will record these podcasts from now on. I think what would be good is if we can at least get some notice out ahead of time. I'll work out how to do all of that.
Yeah. And at some point we might change to a time slot that, people are actually more awake for.
So you did that survey of asking times, and I was like, dude, why did you include that time? That's like 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. my time.
Everybody picked the absolute worst possible time, which was Friday night PST, which was in the middle of the night, Saturday morning for Simon. So that's not gonna work.
I'm not going to go into the office at 4 a.m. on a Saturday morning.
No, I think it was 3 a.m. actually.
Good Lord. I mean, I guess I work quite hard, but not that hard.
Yeah.
Let's wrap it up. It's good to talk to you. Let's. How do you end a live stream? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And how do you stop a live stream? Like.